Namaskaram. Hello again. So today I wanted to have a little talk about transparency and honesty and why they are so crucial in your closest interpersonal relationships and connections. So honesty. I think we all know what that is. It's being truthful. I think that one's pretty straightforward. Transparency. So transparency is deliberately not trying to hide, omit, alter certain events, opinions, feelings. And often there's overlap between transparency and honesty. They do go hand in hand. A lot of, uh, sorry if it's windy. I'm at Big Spring Park in downtown Huntsville. Beautiful day. So I wanted to come outside and get the sun on my face and fresh air. So a lot of people might say, well, some situations you really can't be honest. And I'm not talking about like, if there's government or company secrets, you signed a NDA and it's very strict. Again, I'm talking about your interpersonal, your closest interpersonal connections and relationships. And if you do work for the government or a company or something where you can't even talk about those things to your wife, husband, partner, whatever, obviously that's different. So calm down there, Bob 1976. Um, I'm talking about when it comes to your closest relationships with people that you've identified as they are my family, they are my husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever, my best friend, that you must always practice those two things, being honest and being transparent. And here's why. So when you are not being honest and transparent, even if it's the ugly truth or it's a hard truth, you are there then saying that the love, care, time, energy, respect that you supposedly or allegedly share with this person, that you've dedicated that to this person, which I have umbrellaed under loyalty. Some people don't like hearing that, and it's a very modern, like, visceral reaction because people think that loyalty means you will always bend the knee to this person no matter what, right? Some of you have grown up in certain maybe religions or cultures where you have to always listen to the man or your elders or whatever. I'm not talking about that, and that's not even really loyalty, because loyalty to me is a positive has a positive connotation to it, right? And that's more like, the other thing is more like, you know servitude of some sort, or you've been forced into, not forced, or maybe you even willingly signed like some kind of like legal binding document. So I'm not talking about that, right? I'm talking about loyalty is something that you give freely, and you give that to the people that mean the most to you, or a cause, a belief system. But loyalty, under the umbrella of loyalty to this person, this union, this partnership, this cause, this movement, this religion, whatever it is, you are making this kind of like oath, not just to them or it, but to yourself. This means so much to me that I'm going to dedicate my respect, care, attention, energy, time, and even some form and level of love. So when you are deciding, for whatever reason, to not be honest and or transparent within that partnership or connection, you are then disregarding the loyalty that you have pledged, right? And you're diminishing it, you're devaluing it. And most of the time, people, and folks, I am not up on like my high horse saying, oh, I'm always honest and transparent, like I'm great at this. No, I we're human and, we make mistakes. So again, I'm saying this to myself. I feel that I do try very hard to always do that. Sometimes I fail. Um, but I think compared to a lot of people, that is one of the most important things to me that I try to honor is being honest and transparent. Um, and to add on to that, when you're not being honest and transparent to someone else, that is, again, supposedly like really important to you, that you care about, you're not being honest with yourself, right? Because what that's saying is I am too afraid to tell the person, be transparent with them about X, Y, or Z, because I'm afraid of how they'll react. I'm afraid that it will result in, us breaking up or them, taking this from me or whatever. And so then you're not trusting yourself that you can be honest with this person that you supposedly share a very, very close connection with. And then you're not also trusting them that you two can have a conversation around whatever that item, on the docket is that you want to be honest and transparent about. And a lot of times communication, which I've touched on too in the past, is crucial. And we've gotten really bad uh, from the micro to the macro scale in this day and age with communication. So, sorry, I'm like jostling a lot because I'm like on this boulder or this big rock, and my foot keeps sliding. So, lesson learned: don't sit on big rocks where your shoes don't have great traction on them. Anyways, uh, yeah. So communication is really at an all-time low, like healthy communication. Um, so transparency is not like I have to divulge every single thing that's going on in my head and heart to this person. That's not what I'm saying, and no, that shouldn't be the case. But you know that within certain interpersonal relationships and connections, there are certain boundaries, there are certain asks, right? Like one of the first things that I ask my friend or my romantic partner when we've established, hey, we're best friends or we are lovers, we're going to be committed to each other. I always ask, please do me one thing, and that's always be honest and transparent. Because it's way better if you're doing that in real time, and even if there's some kind of bad news you got to tell me or a tough subject you want to bring up, I'm going to handle it way better knowing that you're in real time being honest and transparent with me about it, and that you trust me and trust yourself to have a conversation about that. Whereas if you hide it, if you omit it willingly, right? If you bend the truth and blur the lines, and I find out way later after the fact, I'm going to be very upset. And it's not just because of what that bad news is. It's because, again, that loyalty, you threw it right out the window, right? You didn't honor that to yourself or to me or to our union, our partnership, our connection. So the trust, therefore, is broken. And a lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of people will blame shift. Well, I was afraid of how you would react. I was afraid of losing you. And it's like when I stress, it's not like I just said it like one time, like, oh yeah, just be honest and transparent with me, okay? It's like, no, like, please hear me on this. Please understand. If you aren't doing that and I find out something later, I'm more upset the fact that you hid it from me. You blurred the truth. Like that's more of what I'm upset by. And it tells me that how can I trust you? And therefore, where's the loyalty? Uh, and some people will say, well, the reaction, I was afraid that you would react very poorly to it. Like there's legitimate concerns about how certain people might react to something. But then you have to question too, well, what have you done that might warrant somebody to like have a like flip out, right? Because then again, the issue isn't even just being honest and transparent, it's the loyalty. Like, where's the respect, the love? Like, if you're doing something, like, there are certain boundaries, right? We have to respect our boundaries, which is another tangential sidebar I will, expound on later. But there are certain boundaries that are really clear for most people, like stealing, physical, sexual abuse, cheating, right? Those are all big betrayals, and they're major. Those boundary lines have been just. I mean, it's like you just leaped over it, right? Those are big boundary crossings. So it makes you wonder, like, well, what did you do that might warrant such a reaction? First of all, um, and then second of all, it's like, well, you're not trusting that if you, again, supposedly really care and love this person, and you honor that connection, you value it, then you should be able to, try to trust that person, right? And if you have to get like other people that care about you both to be there to be mediators and to ensure safety, go for it. Like people think that's stupid. Like, well, I'm not going to. If you trust these other people, yeah, it's a hard thing to let them into maybe something that is going to be very hard to bring up. But if you're honestly, you love this person in the connection, but you're just worried that they might flip out or something, have a poor reaction to it, there is nothing wrong with getting people that love you both to be there as supportive measures. There isn't. Like, I don't know what it is. I think it's part of it's like the what I said, fake it till you make it, keeping up with appearances, being judged by others because, oh, I didn't know that you were doing this or that. Like, so again, a lot of hiding the truth, not being transparent. And that's a whole other bag. Like, what are you doing with your life here? Like, what's going on? Because if you can't bring in those people to be supportive, again, it's this individuality, and I got to do everything on my own as best as I can. And that's different than being self-sufficient in a healthy way. This is that what I've touched on, this false sense of empowerment, that I don't need anybody. And that's really just like avoiding like a hard truth. There's some pain there that you have to work on. And it also speaks to the level of the lack of community that we have these days. We're so divided and broken, and individuality is, king. So that also speaks to a whole other thing that I'll talk about in the future. I just think that if you're able to do that, if you really are afraid now, if you're in an abusive, like legitimately abusive situation, because that abuse gets thrown out way too freely these days. I mean, obvious like physical sexual abuse, like you don't mess around with that, right? But I think when it comes to when people claim I'm being spiritually, emotionally, socially, financially abused, not all the time, but I I've seen and heard, witnessed this myself many times, professionally and personally, where it's like, that's maybe stretching it a bit. That's like blurring the truth, exaggerating because you don't want to take accountability, which I've talked about. You don't want to take accountability for your part in this relationship that became toxic. Because a lot of times, like you're contributing to that. It's when, this is a tangential sidebar here. When two people love each other, that's how it starts out, right? You love each other, but then it devolves. And for whatever reason, and you're debasing yourself, you're stepping out of your higher self, and you're more operating off of, your triggers and, your knee-jerk emotional reactions. You start to, communication breaks down. That's one of the first things. And then the lack of loyalty, trust, care, attention. Um, and then you're both feeding into a a very unhealthy loop where nothing gets resolved, and if anything, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So a lot of times, many relationships and friendships, what have you not, that's what happens. And were you both being emotionally abusive and toxic to each other? Probably yes. All right. I think it's human. If you're not able to take a pause, like breathe, and then come back to that place of love, what you hopefully had in common at the beginning: care, love, respect. That's the commonality, the common thread that you shared in the beginning. So just take a moment, reground yourself, right? Remember and remind the other person lovingly, right? Not in a nasty, spiteful way. Hey, let's remember that we do love and respect each other here. Okay? Let's get back to that, and let's focus on better communication. And it's a very, very hard thing to do because it takes two to tango, right? That other person has to be on board with it. And if they can't do it, then you have to step back and maybe walk away, right? That whole attachment thing that I talked about, learning how to detach. And, if that person's got to go work on stuff, they got to go work on it. But if you insist on trying to get that person to communicate and come from a place of love, it might backfire on you. I mean, I know. So, and in any case, kind of wrapping this all up here, is being honest and transparency is so important, because once you stop doing that, you're not valuing the relationship. You're not valuing yourself. You're not valuing the other person, because boundaries are being crossed now. And the loyalty is, in this sense, a very positive thing. You're not valuing that, and you're not trusting that you can have open conversations from a place of love. A lot of people will get defensive because they don't want to take accountability and responsibility. And a lot of times it's because they're embarrassed or feel guilty, or shame, and I'll talk about that. That will be another topic in the future, is the difference between embarrassment, guilt, and shame. They're very different. Simply, embarrassment is, I did something dumb. Oh, I'm a dum-dum. Okay. Guilt is, I did something bad or wrong, but I'm not a bad person. Shame is the unhealthiest. It says, I am a bad person. Right? So I'll talk about that in future episodes. So a lot of times it's like this, a lot of people won't be honest and transparent because they're afraid. They're afraid that it means I'm a bad person because I believe this, or I said this, or I did this, right? And that's something that, again, you're not operating in your higher self. So take a moment, all right? Take a moment, Nancy. By the sea, 123. Just thinking of random usernames, profile handles, right? Just take a moment, ground yourself, right? Try to listen to your intuition and not your knee-jerk reactionary behaviors. and then say, okay, I'm feeling a little bit of embarrassment or guilt, and maybe even shame, and I got to work on that. But that doesn't mean that I can't still be honest and transparent with this person that I care very much about. It's going to be a hard talk, but it's necessary, because the longer I hide it or omit it, or bend the truth, the worse it's going to get. I, again, I'm not perfect at that, but I feel like that's one of the most important like tenets, like really live by. And I I feel like for the most part I've done a pretty good job at that. Um, and maybe that's another thing too for all of us to think about, is when you're establishing a new relationship of sorts, whatever it is. Okay, it doesn't have to be romantic. Maybe you need to really identify, is this other person going to be honest and transparent to the level that I'm going to be? Like, assess that out over time before you give that loyalty. All right. It's probably like, yeah, yeah, Justin, good idea. Like, maybe you're smart sometimes. Maybe that's something that we really need to be cognizant of in the beginning stages. Because if you feel like this person probably can't do that, doesn't make him a bad person, but I think you're going to be disappointed. Well, everybody will probably be heartbroken, disappointed, upset in the end. So maybe you have to reevaluate like how much you're giving to that connection and that person, or even that movement, that cause, that religion, whatever. I think I'll end it there, because we're at over 20 minutes. All right. Well, as always, I truly, honestly wish you all the best on your journeys, and take care till the next time, okay?